And welcome to the Aaron Katzman Show. I'm your host, Aaron Katzman. We speak to you about life, your money, and your investments. And as always, we're coming to you from the spiritual and soon-to-be financial capital of the world, Jerusalem, Israel. If you like this content, please hit the like button below. And if you have not yet done so, please subscribe to both our YouTube channel and to the podcast. We're getting back. We took a little bit of a hiatus. Hiatus was sort of self-inflicted because some of us are a little bit lazy, but we're back to the entrepreneurial series that we're doing, that you can become an entrepreneur in Israel and it doesn't have to be in high tech. And it is my pleasure to bring on the show Dena Ackerman, who is a professional artist, illustrator, writer, and art instructor. She's originally from LA. She specializes in portrait painting and children's book art. She's illustrated over 40 books and created hundreds of custom paintings for private collectors, businesses, and magazines. She teaches art online and in a local art college. Dena, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Wow, you're busy. That was a breathful. I need to check myself after reading all that. First, tell us what you do.
Okay, so I work from home as an artist and illustrator. So mainly I work on commissions. So it's people who want portrait art or custom painting, illustrations for businesses. Like if someone has an ad that they want illustrated, or a social media campaign and they want some illustrations done, some comics, and children's books. So I work with publishers, usually once in a while a self-published author. And I also produce online art courses. So that's one of my newer ventures.
And when you say for private collectors, what's that mean? Somebody says, I desperately need a picture of, I don't know, a plate of usually,
yeah, people are desperate for those. But usually it's like a family member when it's a commission, you know, their grandma and grandparents, you know, or their kids. Once in a while, a wedding portrait, things like that. I've done in the past more like, you know, also like ketubas and Judaica pieces and things like that. I don't really do those much anymore. I'm focusing more on portrait art.
Okay, so
and my illustration.
You moved to Israel how long ago?
About 19 years ago.
19 years ago. And you got into this how?
So I've been drawing and painting all my life. I started selling things when I was like in high school. So yeah, but I would say as a professional, it's been about 12 years. So once I was already living in Israel, and when I moved here, I was doing other things, working for an outreach organization, doing some, whatever, other types of work. I got a children's book illustration job through a friend. And I realized that if I could kind of focus on things like that and continue to bring in work like that, that I could make it into a career. I had been consistently selling art, not consistently, but you know, like over the years, people knew that I was an artist, and I was on Facebook back then, was my place online, you know, and posted art. And so I got work here and there, but it wasn't like, I didn't treat it as a real profession, you know, until about 12 years ago when I got that first children's book job.
Wow. So when you started out, right, when you were young, I often ask people, right, did they have sort of, did they know that they had sort of the entrepreneurial spirit when they were young? Now, it sounds like at least you were selling art when you were young, right? So can you talk, like, was it always sort of, you always sort of figured you'd have your own business one way or another, or sort of how did you get, how did that work out?
Never. It never occurred to me that I could make a living doing my art. I loved it. It was like part of me. It was what I did. I was like the class artist, and then community knew about me and, you know, would come over and see my stuff. But like, no, never occurred to me to start a business. And I was always working for other people. Like at this point, I kind of kick myself. Like if I could go back in time and all those years that I was sitting in an office, like just what was I doing working for other people? I have no idea. You know, but like, so yeah, no, it didn't occur to me until recently. And even once I started, you know, doing more illustration work and taking more portrait work and things like that, like it still didn't occur to me that it was a business. you know, it was a way to make money. But I wasn't treating it as like a long-term like business, and it was, I don't know,
How did
maybe in
you
the
take the
past.
plunge? How did you decide to like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to do this full time. Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, because all the other things I was doing were like, they weren't tapping into necessarily my talents. They were things I enjoyed. You know, I liked working with people and I liked doing other things, but like suddenly like a light bulb went off. You know, like, oh, you're an artist, like you could actually make a business doing this. It was a little bit of an epiphany, but even so, I wasn't business minded. I hired a business coach like, I don't know how long ago, it's been a year or two ago, when I finally realized like I should get my act together. And it was also like within the last 3 years that I opened up as a in Israel, like officially as a business. I always had been filing American taxes, but I was kind of avoiding the whole making it legal in Israel. And
Mhm.
I just figured like, you know, at that point I wasn't making enough, nobody would care, nobody would check, nobody. But when I started making more money and I started to get nervous, like, I better, you know, put it on the books. So I had to hire an accountant. Now I pay two accountants, one
Right.
American, one, one for Israel. And so, you know, it's nice to have it kind of official.
So how is that? So that's perfect sort of segue into the next question, right? So you've got a lot of entrepreneurs have, you know, something that they love, right? And they do it. And then there's the technical side, right? The sort of the bureaucratic side.
Yeah.
And, you know, for somebody who's made Aliyah, it's probably doubly as hard, right? Because, you know, you sort of maybe if you did it in the States or wherever you come from, so you sort of understand the culture, but you're doing this in a different culture, just a different business culture and a different language. How
Yeah.
was that for you? Like, you're an artist, right? The stereotype of an artist is certainly not somebody who's, you know, keeping the books and the accountancy and stuff like that. So how do you sort of how do you do that, and sort of how do you feel about that?
Yeah. So I always kind of kept track of what I was making. I'd like put it in an Excel sheet, so I'd kind of know.
Right,
Even before you know, even before and I was paying American taxes ever since I moved here. So I had to kind of
right.
be on top of that, is somewhat. But yeah, I didn't want to deal with any of it, so I just went to an accountant and I told her like, please take care of it. Oh, you do the paperwork, you can open the business. She's like, what's the business name? I don't know, call it Art by Dena. And it was just like, okay, so that's my business is official now in Israel. But yeah, I wasn't interested in really taking care of any of that
So you're
myself.
outsourcing all the sort of the technical aspects of the business, you outsource basically.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. And there's plenty of other things that I do myself because I'm very much a control freak, but the accounting and that part of it, no, I didn't
I
feel
think
a need to do
that's the
that.
character trait of an entrepreneur, is not to be able to relinquish control of anything.
Yeah,
So
tell me about
not
that.
simple. It's not simple.
Yeah.
And I'm not, of course, God forbid, I'm not speaking from personal experience, but
No.
not, of course, I'm great at outsourcing everything. Um,
I know, I'm sure.
when you started, did you sort of like run it by anybody? Or, you know, and if you did they give you positive or negative feedback? Or you just sort of, you know, it sort of got to a stage and you just said, okay, that's what I'm doing?
I know I never ran it by anybody really. I mean, I had like, you know, some mentors here and there, other artists. Didn't really have any like close friends who were really, I'm trying to think, had their own business running in Israel. It was only, you know, once I started being interested in making it more of a business that kind of connected with other people. So yeah, it was really totally new. And I'd also heard, I'm sure you've heard people who say it's not worth it to open a business in Israel. You're going to end up paying double taxes and it's so not worth it. And you might as well just make a little bit and save yourself the headache. But like, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me. I
Right,
mean, you know, yeah, I end up paying double taxes, but I mean, you know, should I only
right,
be making under like $2,000 a month because I can avoid paying taxes?
right.
Like,
it's sort of silly when you have the potential to
Yeah, it's just
blow out your
self-defeating.
business. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, you just suck it up, I guess, do what you have to do.
What sort of, you know, it's obviously when you have your own business, it's not all, roses, right? There are obviously things come up all the time. What sort of hurdles did you have, in the process of starting the business until until now, right? Your business hasn't been you haven't been around for so long. What kind of hurdles have you faced that have been tough for you, like obstacles?
Yeah. So like I say that I've been working as a professional illustrator and artist for like 12 years. That was kind of when the light bulb went off and I was decided to focus my energy on that. But yeah, it's definitely been a process because especially working as a freelancer and an artist, right? So things go up in waves. And I think it's the same with any freelancer. You have months where you're very busy and money seems to be coming in, and then you have months that are slower and you're wondering where your next paycheck's going to come from. So it's a process of just, I guess, building up a reputation, and I'm pretty active on social media and posting my stuff. And there was a point where I would go to meet with publishers and was sending out my portfolio to them. And, so there's like a bit of that active like hustling to get people to see your work. So, I don't know if that's like an obstacle necessarily, or more just like the natural progression of the way an artist starts to get to be known, until it takes time.
So a lot of your marketing is obviously is word of mouth, right? As
Yeah.
we say, here, a friend brings a friend. That's a very
Yeah.
bad translation from English, from Hebrew, but from word of mouth. But you also do what? You do some social media. You just post on social media. I mean, that's the beauty of social media, right? You don't necessarily
Yeah,
have
it's like
to spend lots
it's
of
really
money.
pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, an artist never had it that easy. You were obliged to an art gallery or an agent, or whatever. You couldn't just sell it from me straight to the customer. Like it's kind of unheard of, until social media popped up. So yeah, it's a great blessing for everybody, for artists especially.
So we're speaking to Dena Ackerman, who's a professional artist, illustrator, art instructor, and about 12 other things that have to do with the world of being artistic. And we're speaking about her voyage, her journey to be an entrepreneur. Dena, I was remiss. For people who want to contact you, how can they reach out to you?
Oh, that's nice. Okay, so email's good. It's Dena with an E, Dena art@gmail.com. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, but I rarely check it anymore, under Dena Ackerman. And my website is denaackerman.com.
Okay. You started, from what you said, like during Corona, after Corona, like what's the timeline? And did Corona, impact you either, positively to sort of give you a push to do this, or how did Corona sort of play a role in this?
Yeah, actually, so, it was good in terms of business. I worked from home anyway, and it seemed like I've wondered what it was about Corona that actually boosted some business in a way. Maybe people just were sitting around thinking of all those projects that they wanted to get done, their children's book that they wanted to publish, or maybe the publishers just found that sitting at home, they also had more time to like consolidate some of their projects together and get them moving. Or people sitting around scrolling through social media because they had nothing else to do and thought like, hey, let's do a family portrait painting. I don't know what it was, but yeah, it didn't suffer from Corona, so I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
So lots of viewers are either people who've already come on Aliyah, who live here, or who are thinking about it. And we're thinking about starting a business that, again, as we spoke about at the beginning, is not necessarily high tech. What sort of advice or tips would you give to people, to prospective Olim, who are thinking about starting a business here?
So most of my client base is out of Israel.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't have particular advice for people within Israel itself.
Mhm.
But if their business is something that, location isn't really important. So, obviously that's kind of ideal if you're moving from one location to another, especially like my Hebrew is okay, but it's not great.
Mhm.
And again, like you mentioned, the culture. So for me, it's really great that I can do everything remote. I can work from home. I can mail out. A lot of things are obviously digital.
Mhm.
So I can just scan illustrations and send them out. But if it's a physical painting, just stick it in the mail. So, if someone's got a kind of a business where they can just transfer their physical location, but nothing else is going to change for them, like, I mean, that's definitely ideal, I think.
Okay.
So maybe, yeah, people could focus on how to
Okay. And let's
maintain
say
their,
for an entrepreneur in general, what tips would you give
yeah.
them, right? Yeah, it's not so simple, right? As you mentioned, right? The income is spotty. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not so great. Like, you have to have sort of tough skin. What would your sort of advice be just to an entrepreneur or a potential entrepreneur who's thinking of, going ahead and starting their own business?
Yeah, I think you've just got to have the mindset that you're going to keep going and you're just going to do the best you can. At some point, you're kind of giving up a little control. It's like a little bit of having faith, and trusting that, like, God hasn't let me down until now, and my kids are not going to go hungry, and we're going to be okay, and I'm just going to like keep doing my best. Sometimes that's my attitude, when things are kind of like spotty, but I feel like if you're good at what you do, and if you have a way of marketing yourself, which is something that I'm not very good at. Like I enjoy social media, but and I have an email list which is pretty solid, but I'm not good at sending out emails. So like I think people should focus on getting to know more about marketing their services, because you can have a great service or product. Getting yourself out there is important. And at one point, like I worked with a business coach who really helped me to kind of shift a little bit of a money mindset and pricing, and feeling comfortable asking for more money and raising prices and coming up with offers, that I could charge more for. I heard something interesting recently on a podcast about, rather than offering a product or a service and then thinking to yourself, how can I price this? Like, is it worth $500? Is it worth $1,000? Whatever it is. So kind of work it the opposite way. Think like, I would like to offer a service that is going to make me $1,500, and then build the product or the offer like around that amount. So what value can I give for that amount of money? So that was interesting to me. So I'm like in the process of, I'm doing online courses. I'd like to do more like art coaching, things like that. So I'm kind of in a transitional stage where instead of just working, I like trading my time for money, like I'll do an
Mhm.
illustration, you pay me,
Huh.
to kind of, look at how I can expand things so that, I don't know, my kids get older, they keep demanding more, everything's getting more expensive. So yeah, it's the
So you
process.
touched on something that was really, really interesting. I was going to wrap things up, but I want to touch on that, right? And that's the your ability, which is really cool. Cool, kudos to you to actually raise prices, right? To try and realize on the one hand that you're giving a value or whatever it is, value, right? Whatever, in what form it is, that doesn't really matter, right? Which is worth more than you originally thought it was worth. How did you get over that? I've spoken to so many people. That is not an easy thing for people to do, especially we pay more for our food, but it seems that, on our own businesses, there's always pressure to drop the prices because we're competing, right?
Yeah.
We want to get the business. How did you get over
Yeah.
that hurdle to actually charge more money?
Yeah, so I mean, I can only speak in my field, but I feel like, first of all, my experience grows every year that I'm doing this, and my skills are growing. The work that I do is on a professional level, and it's also in the art world. A lot of people are working digitally. There's a little bit of AI pushing itself into the art space now and things like that. But I work traditionally, so all my illustrations are done actually on paper with pens and paints and stuff like that. So I feel like it's a little bit more of a, I don't know, pricier type of illustration. So if people want cheap work, like they won't come to me, because it's not cheap work. Like it's my craft. So that's one thing. And I've realized, like, thank God that people are willing to pay for that and pay a little bit more. Not everybody, obviously, but enough people that I can keep doing it. So I guess, you know, it's still hard. Like, I still don't enjoy raising prices and feeling like that angst, like, you know, I need the money, so should I lower the price because it's better to have some money coming in, or raise the price? And maybe they'll say yes. Like, you know, you always kind of second guess yourself. But yeah, you know, it feels good on the other hand sometimes when people will turn you down because you're too expensive. And if you're able to say, like, that's fine, like, I am too expensive for some people, you know, somebody else will come along who's willing to
Great
pay it.
approach. I think a lot of people should heed that advice. That's a really good way to look at it. Dena, once again, how can people get in touch with you? It's
denaackerman.com or denaart@gmail.com.
And we'll post your contact information as well at the notes of the show. Dena, this was fascinating. Thanks so much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure. It's nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You've been tuning in to the Erin Katzman Show. We speak about your life, your money, and your investments. If you like this content, and I'm sure you do, please hit the like button below. And if you've not yet done so, please, please, please subscribe to both our YouTube channel and the podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll speak to you soon.